Good afternoon, Radio UTD. This is Jonathan Holmes speaking with the Weekly Orbit. What is this show? This is the first episode of the Weekly Orbit, and it's a weekly show where we're going to discuss all different kinds of just political / current events / controversies. For the first episode, it's going to be called The Rise of the Urban Chicken, and I have a guest here, Chef Raska. If you'd like to say hello.
Hey, thank you. Hey, Jonathan, thanks for having me out.
Kind of privilege on the first show, so thanks for having me.
Mm-hmm. Actually, I had the mic cut for a second. So
okay. You got me now?
Yeah, I gotcha.
Level good?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Like I said, this is the first episode. We're going to try to have a different guest every week, a different talk show topic every week. We're going to cover all sorts of stuff. I know next week we're going to do conspiracy theories because it does land on September 11th. The 13th anniversary, I guess, of that fatal day. We're going to have another guest from probably the JFK museum, actually, the 6th floor museum from Dallas, Texas. And then the week after that is going to be about women in politics. But I guess let's just get into the topic at hand. Jeff, would you like to tell them a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, well, I'm an extension educator for Texas A&M University AgriLife Extension, the 4-H program assistant here in the county, which is I go into schools and do curriculum enrichment programs, which like we had chicks in classrooms, and we talk about life cycle, and kids get to see the miracle birth. I coordinate Farm Day at the fair, the state fair coming up, where we bring kids from Title I schools out, and they get to come out and see cows being milked, and we do a full program where they get to talk about farm animals, and it's free to them, so they just got to get a bus and come out, so I'm signing up schools for that now. Last year we had 5,100 kids out, so we have a lot of kids in there. And I'm also for AgriLife Extension, I'm a project specialist for the Grow Eat Go grant study, where we put some gardens in some schools here in Dallas ISD, and we grow vegetables, and then I go in and do cooking demos for the kids, and we talk about nutrition, and we're trying to pinpoint behavioral changes to help fight the obesity epidemic we have now in our schools.
Perfect. And I heard that you go around Texas actually giving lectures about chickens.
I do all over. It's kind of crazy right now. This movement is going kind of nuts. As you know, we had a little discussion out about chickens. And
we were talking a little bit before the show started.
So it's crazy. It's going crazy, and I lecture quite a bit. And,
okay. All right. Well, let me get into that. But first, I actually have to read a disclaimer. The views expressed on Radio UTD are solely those of the DJs and not reflect the views of Radio UTD as a whole or the University of Texas at Dallas. Okay, now that that's over, we can talk all controversial stuff.
So now we can lie all we want to.
Yeah, say all the great stuff.
Go nuts.
Yeah, the FCC can't tell us anything. Basically, let's start out with how did you get into chickens? Like, did you have them growing up?
Well, actually, my grandfather did. My mother's parents came from a farm in Midlothian, dairy farm, and my mother was raised on a farm until she was 8 years old, and then they came to the city. So when my grandparents came to the city, they brought chickens with them. So they've always had chickens as a kid. I stayed with them in the summer when my mom and dad worked. So, as a little kid, I just remember, and they were so the thought of chickens in the city is not foreign to me. It's just it was natural because as a kid, that's what we had. Mama, I'd go in the backyard and there'd be chickens all over the backyard. And they were in Fort Worth, city of Fort Worth proper. Awesome, so it was kind of one of those things. And the movement's not a new movement. Chickens really were farm animals up to about the 1900s and early 1900s, and then they were more of a nuisance farm animal, something you had to have because you need the meat and the eggs. Yeah. But then after that, when the Industrial Revolution came about, they started turning into actual farms where they raised eggs and raised meat chickens, and then about in the 1950s, then the farms turned to factories, and that's where they kind of went downhill from there. When you start doing factory farming, it kind of blows the whole industry out, and doesn't, so.
Right. Well, I'm glad that you brought up the 1950s, actually, because it's one of the things I was going to talk about is the movement away from factory, I guess, into factory farming, I should say, for chickens, and away from the stereotypical farm that you would imagine when someone says the word farm to you. I know that for me, I got a chicken whenever I was in high school from one of my professors. He just had a chicken, and he was like, does anybody want a chicken? And I was like, yeah. so I got one.
What class was that? Was he just carried a chicken around?
He actually is a biology teacher, so it makes a little bit more sense. One of his students had a chicken. She couldn't care for it anymore. It was a baby, a few days old, and she gave it to him because he had like a lot of pets and a lot of room and stuff, and he just had it because he just got it that day, and I took it from him. But that was my first chicken. I fell in love with them after that. So I feel like this bond that I have with them is kind of why I want this first episode to be about, chickens. And I think that they say more about our society than just, they are meat or they're eggs or they're weird or they're, little animals that, a lot of people think are dumb or something. I think they say a lot about who we are as a, society. In the 1950s, actually, I read a while back, I can't cite exactly who wrote this, but he was saying that there was a leap, a little bit of a surge in people who wanted to own chickens on their land. And it was probably the 1950s to the 1960s, they started owning chickens because they wanted to be a little self-sufficient, actually, and they just kind of thought it was quirky, kind of fun. And then nowadays, probably since 2005, there was another resurgence of this this whole movement of self-sufficiency. We talk about solar power, collecting rainwater, gardens in your yard, and now chickens, even maybe a goat if you have a little plot of land in the city. It's because of many different factors. I feel like we're going to get into that a little bit later, but GMOs, maybe preservatives are scaring them away, maybe how the government acts actually. But actually, before we get into that, I want to ask you real quick, Jeff, what is your favorite breed of chicken?
Probably the Cochin Bantams, yeah, because my specific little blue rooster sits on my lap every evening.
Yeah,
he'll sit on my lap. I rub him. He'll pet him. He dances to my wife. He'll bring her food and drop it at her feet, which is innate behavior that the roosters do this for their hen flock. Yeah. They'll go find food. They'll do certain calls, and you talked about them being vocalizations. They have multiple vocalizations, 24 to 30 different sounds for different things, different sounds for different predators, different sounds. And when I lecture and I ask people that have chickens, I say, do you talk to your chickens? They say, well, of course. Do they talk back to you? Do you understand them? They say, absolutely, we understand them. A different sound for a different. If they're agitated, they make a different sound to you. But they'll make a different sound to you than they would to another chicken. They have a special sound. I've got little hens that come up, and if I don't pay attention to them, they'll peck me on the foot. I mean, they know what they want. They want interaction. They're highly social. They're highly cognitive animals. Some level them with certain levels of cognition, the same as a primate. Yeah. And so they're very cognitive. They're not just a dumb meat animal that we can throw around and treat bad. And you talk about factories and the way that was done. Farming went from a way of life to a business. Yeah. And when it went to business, went to the factory farms, the torture these poor animals went through, cognitive, feeling animals they went through in these farms, still do today. Yeah, definitely. And I think that's a little part of the base of the movement. People are starting to realize what's happening out there, and people do want to look at where their food sources come from. Perfect. And how food's sourced and what's in food and all the preservatives. We're trying to get to a cleaner lifestyle. Self-sufficiency is part of it. Chickens are the perfect top to that circle, that green circle, because they're the manure producer, they're the nitrogen producer that helps the compost go, and you bring the compost in. They're a part of this permacultural cycle that we're trying to let nature work. They're everything in nature has a place. They have a specific place, and what's fortunate for us is through selective breeding and through just their innate behaviors, they're a very social animal that can come into a small backyard and flourish and do very well as long as we meet their needs and we practice biosecurity. Yeah. Okay, so I know that you said that chickens aren't dumb, and that's actually one of the things I want to talk about a little bit later on in the episode. But the point is, whenever I brought up the breeds, is that there's actually a lot of different breeds. People think they're dumb. They think they're just all either brown or black or something, but they're actually smart. They break a lot of stereotypes. They are bred for a lot of different reasons. Maybe it's eggs, maybe it's for meat, maybe it's for show. I know that my first chicken, he was a leghorn, and they're actually like good for meat or maybe lay like eggs, laying eggs. They're not too, I guess they're probably the most general
all-purpose chicken you can get,
Yeah,
right?
they're what we call the light breeds. There's a light and a heavy breed. The light breeds typically don't have as much meat. They're certainly edible, but they're not like the broilers that we'd buy in the store.
Yeah.
They lay a lot of eggs. They cycle eggs within 24 hours, and they can lay constantly. And that's generally all the white eggs you see here that we buy in the store is Leghorn. That's a Leghorn. That's the Mediterranean breed eggs, because they do white eggs. And usually our heavier breeds are like the Rhode Island Reds, the Barred Rocks. Our heritage breeds are generally the breeds that are meat purpose birds and egg birds. Good egg layers, they lay brown eggs, good egg layers, good meat ratio because they've got enough fat in their meat, whereas your Mediterranean breeds just don't have the fat in there. They're a lot more lean and they don't have the fat process. They eat them, but...
Right. So, okay, my Leghorn actually, even though he was bred to be, I guess, eaten or have his product eaten, he was my first chicken. I raised him when he was a little baby, all the way up until he was his death. Actually, unfortunately, I'd probably tear up a second. Yeah, he was really nice. He was always like, if I'd open the door, this is a story I always tell people. If I open the back door, he would pop his head up out of the grass or out of wherever he was laying, out of the coop, and he would see who it was that was coming out the door. And if it was me, he would run over to me and jump up near me on my legs, trying to make me hold him. If it was somebody else, he just wouldn't care. So he had that kind of cognitive ability to recognize, who was around. I don't know, he was like the coolest chicken I've ever met. And chickens are, I don't know.
There's a study that was done that said they could recognize about 30 different faces of human beings. Yeah. And being a prey animal, chickens are innately a prey animal. They focus on our eyes and our face. They focus on the triangle of our head because of the way they focus. So they can see our faces. They recognize. They absolutely recognize us. And a stranger comes up, they go into a flight mode.
Yeah, exactly.
But when we're out there, they come to you. They sit on your lap. And there's certain breeds. Certain breeds are very good for that. And certain breeds would peck your eyes out if they got it. And they are, and that's what they are. They're bred, and they're so diverse. They're more diverse in breeds than dogs are. There's more diverse breeds of chickens and dogs. And behaviors are all over the board, just like there are with dogs.
Yeah, I remember whenever I first got my chicken, I tried to remember all the breeds there were. I got a book for just chicken breeds, and it had at least 90 in there. And I tried to find one specific that I really liked, and it wasn't in that book. And I looked it up online. It turned out there was a lot more than just were in that book. So there's no way you could just remember exactly every kind of property that each chicken had unless you're like a chicken expert.
Yeah.
I know that, I don't know, that you could have them bred for meat, you can have them bred for eggs, you can have them bred for, I guess, companionship or maybe looks. What other reason would somebody in the city want to have a chicken for? Is there something else that is out there?
Well, I think a lot of it spreads by word of mouth with people that have them or people that go see them, and like I think we discussed it when we were talking out there, that all my lectures I do, I always talk to people that have chickens, and I'll get repeats that come back and see another one. And I'll talk to them, and I ask them, I said, did you get your chickens? Yeah, we finally got chickens. Do you like them? And they love them. Nobody's ever said to me, no, and honest to God, nobody's ever come up and said, I don't like them. I absolutely fall in love with them.
Yeah.
If you pick the right breed, if you house them properly and feed them properly, you're successful. They're not just a short-term thing. They can live as long as a dog. They can live into their teens.
15 years, 20
easily. They have a genetic makeup to live into their 30s. They generally don't, but they could. But generally the average is 10 years or so. But they can live into their teens or their 20s. And so it's kind of a word-of-mouth type thing. I think people look for food. I think people think sometimes these little things are kind of kind of niches that people want to get into, a cool thing, kind of cool to go and hobby thing and go and show. Our 4-H kids do very well in the shows locally, so we get kids that get into the 4-H clubs and want to buy chickens and show them. So there's certainly show chickens that are easy to handle, easy for the kids to take out, and easy for their in the city. And my program I developed is really the program. Our lecture on and developed is really on backyard chickens. I don't talk about production. I don't talk about marketing or any kind of slaughter birds. I talk about bringing them into the backyard as a pet animal, as a pet bird, because that's what we have to have a mindset as a pet.
Yeah.
And because you're not going, just because you got 3 chickens in your backyard, you ain't got a farm, okay?
Yeah, exactly.
You're not a farmer, and you don't have a farm. You got a house. You just got a different type of pet.
That's a good point that you bring up, actually.
And they're no harder to take care of than a dog. I say their care is a lot like a dog as far as physical care. You got to watch them every day. You got to tend to them every day. A cat's a little less, but a cat's a little different animal. But you have to treat their house like a cat box.
Yeah.
Their housing, because you got to keep it clean.
Yeah.
The chicken doesn't stink. The house does if it's got poop in it. You know?
Yeah, no, exactly.
And the same way with the cat box. Cats don't stink, but the box does, right? It's your practice that makes it stink, not the animals themselves.
Yeah, I think one misconception that people have about chickens is they say, "Ew, you have chickens? Why? They're dirty. They're nasty." And it's, if you make sure that the coop is clean, you make sure their living area is clean, just like a child. A child will be clean if you change his diaper. If you don't, he's going to have a dirty diaper and he'll be dirty. So you just got to make sure that you kind of keep up with it. But
and you watch them half the time they're preening. They're eating and preening. That's what they do. They're cleaning. They're cleaning themselves.
Chickens do take dust baths.
Absolutely. They get the oil off they clean themselves by oiling their feathers and to keep their feathers old. So they take dust baths to clean them off and get parasites off. I don't have parasites. I don't have anything on the birds because I do practice. I do best practice. I keep them biosecure. There's a lot of things to do, and you can't really go over it in one show, but there's 3 things to do. The right breed, there's a breed for every need. If you want a lap bird, it's a lap chicken that you want to hold all the time, get a breed that's friendly. Yeah. And check that box. Tick that little box and you've got a good bird. If you want a lot of eggs and you don't want to hold it as much, you can get one of the egg layers, but you got to remember when you house it, it's going to need more flat room because they tend to be a little more flatty. Smaller house to lay in, bigger area outside, the bigger pen to run in. And in the city, most ordinances now are not going to allow you to let them free range in the city, which you don't need to anyway because you're not going to keep them very long. You free range them in a small backyard, what's going to happen is you're serving them on a smorgasbord to hawks and the predators because they don't have anywhere to go. And I've worked with a lot of city councils here in the Metroplex area, and I'm working with some right now on ordinances. And it's great because I can go into when a city council or an advisory committee calls me in there, I don't have an agenda. I just give them facts, and I want them to do the best for the bird. Okay. The people themselves, I don't care if the city gets chickens or not, but I want to make sure the birds are properly taken care of. But I don't want I don't want all these wives' tales to go forward like that. Chickens are nasty and dirty. Exactly. And that's what you get, and that's what I get all the time. And it's not true. So we just have to educate. That's the point. If you're well educated, just like anything you do, if you're well educated and you go in it with your eyes open, if I can go out and talk to a class of 50 people and tell them what to expect, everything to expect, with no glistening and no candy coating this thing. This is what they do. This is what you need to do. If you do it, you're going to be successful. I promise, because we're talking from fact. We're not talking from conjecture. We're not talking from something, an agenda. This is how it works. Biology is simple. Biology, things work for certain ways. So makes it easy.
Speaking of biology, I guess this is a good time to transition. Let's talk about poop for a second. Chickens poop a lot, I guess. People think they can be dirty because they poop. I mean, every animal I know poops.
Of course.
They have a lot of nitrogen in their poop.
They have the highest rate of nitrogen. The best, by far the best nitrogen igniter to a compost pile, and a very clean, it's a clean release. So it's clean droppings. They're very good. You don't just like everything else. You compost it. You never put raw manure on any kind of gardens. Of course. So you don't garden with raw. You don't garden with it right away. But you put it. But if you put it into your compost pile, then you don't have to add a nitrogen. Right. That is the nitrogen to it. And urea is as hot as urea there is. It's the highest concentration of urea in the shavings. So if you take some of the shavings and you put in your compost pile, it's going to fire the pile. It's going to fire it up and it's part of our green permaculture cycle, part of our green cycle. Of course.
I can speak from, sorry to cut you off like that. No. I can speak from experience that I've had like 4 or 5 chickens. The amount of chickens I've had has fluctuated depending on, I guess the season. But we had put down sod one year at my house, and we let them roam around the backyard almost every day. Maybe some days we keep them in their coop or their run or whatever. And my stepdad was mad. He was upset actually a little bit that the sod might get messed up if we let the chickens out a little bit. But every time I go back there, back to Austin to check out the house and to visit my family and stuff, I actually see the beautiful yard and how nice it is. I mean, if they're walking around and a poop falls on,
Well, yeah, I mean that's what nature does. Right. It's part of the nature, and the thing about it, part of if people know chickens and talk about chicken tractors, the function of a tractor, which is a moving pen. If you've got some property, what you do is you let them forage on that area. You put them in a pen that's movable, so you let them forage on an area for a certain amount of time. A month, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month. You move it, and then you plant your garden there. It's already cleaned. It's already high nutrition. It's already going. So I mean.
For anybody who actually isn't familiar with a chicken tractor, it's like a cage with wheels on the bottom that you can kind of either remove or you can extend in some way to be able to will the cage somewhere else to another part, so you're not always keeping them in the same part of the yard.
Yeah, you
every
move
day.
them around. Yeah, and not practical in the city, but it works very well on
Of course.
it works well in the country if you got some property, because the whole fact is that if you get a breed of chickens, it's a better forager. Some breeds of chickens are better foragers. You don't have to pay as much money for the feed.
Of course.
And the more eggs you can get for the less amount of feed you pay, the better. So the Leghorns you're talking about, very good foragers,
Right.
very very low ratio of food cost to actual production.
Yeah.
So you let them forage around different areas, so they'll clean out an area, they'll get grass and sod, they'll get grass and insects and everything else, and you move them around.
I remember, I remember whenever I had my chicken. His name was Kermit, actually, because he was a dyed chicken. You've heard of those, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, you can dye those in the egg.
Yeah, that's
that's
exactly.
experiment. You put the experiment we do is you could. I don't do, but
Yeah,
you
it
can
actually-
actually shoot dye into the egg, and the chick will come out that color, and he'll change color when the
course.
feather's out. But when he comes
Yeah.
out, he'll be pink or yellow or green.
My chicken was green, actually, and his name was Kermit because of it. And he grew out of it eventually. He's just a white leghorn eventually. But I remember whenever I first got him, I would always take him outside. I didn't know at the time you shouldn't take him outside whenever they're just like a few days old. But he would follow me around. I would lift rocks, flip him over, and he would kind of run over underneath the rock if he saw me flip it to look for bugs or something.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of taught him how to forage for bugs, I guess. I know that anytime I would go outside, he'd follow me extensively, see if I flip any rocks over. Even whenever he was older, he'd be able to remember that.
Of course, he knew it though.
Yeah.
He remembered it. That's the cognition. They do remember that. Now, what's interesting, our chicks, one of the behavioral things we do with the kids is the fact that chicks raised in an incubator, 2 or 3 days old, you can take them out and they're already starting to scratch the soil. They're already starting to scratch and they're feeding, and they're already starting to set up the pecking order.
Yeah.
Very early on, they'll set a dominance order in. And what's amazing, the kids can actually see learned behavior next to innate behavior, next to born behaviors, and they'll say, "Why? Who taught them how to scratch for seed?
Yeah.
You think I went out in the yard and taught them how to scratch? They see it, but it catches.
Yeah.
Because they do. A chicken has to be born. Their eggs would be on the ground, just like a turkey and just like ducks. So that baby chick has to be able to have all 5 senses acute, and it has to be able to, in theory, survive without mama right away.
Yeah.
And in theory, they could. If they met the warmth and they could get into the jungle and get underneath the brush, it's an animal that possibly could, from day one, live on its own, maybe, because it's got everything it needs as a chick that it's going to have in its adult. Of course, they hone that senses, and they get better and they get more aggressive and they get bigger, of course, with their sizes. But what's amazing is, like a bluebird in a tree's blind. Because mama brings them food, a whole different thing. So you kind of look at how nature works. Nature's, it's perfect systems.
Yep. Speaking of inept abilities to learn versus what they come in instinctually, what would you talk about? Let's talk about for a second vocalization, because I know that's one thing that you mentioned earlier. Whenever I explain how smart chickens are to people, it's usually one of the first things I talk about. Chickens know about 27 and 30 distinct vocalizations, and for any animal in the animal kingdom besides humans, that's the most. They have their own language, and it comes naturally to them. They know if they see a wolf to make a certain specific noise to warn the other chickens. If they see a snake, it's a different noise versus maybe like a raccoon, a little bit smaller than a wolf, have a different noise, or like a hawk or something. Can we talk about that for a second? Sure.
Because it's such a structured order. The pecking order is a very amazing structure. There's going to be a dominant. You get a group of 10 hens, you're going to have one dominant hen that leads the group. She's the one and dominance is usually through aggression. Dominance is always through aggression. She's aggressive. She gets the food first. She goes to the best nesting area first. She'll get on the highest perch first. But she'll lead the group, and there'll be a number 2, and that number 2 will follow her, and she can pick on number 2. But number 2 can pick on 3 and 4 and 5. It goes all the way down the hill. So it's a very structured order.
Yeah.
They do that because being a prey animal, being an animal that's fairly elusive, they can run about 9 miles an hour for the smaller birds. They're pretty fast.
Yeah, they are.
They're pretty elusive, but they're still a typical ground prey animal. They don't have high flight. They have medium. They can go up into a small tree and get up in some trees,
jump and
they can get up and flap up, but they don't have high flight, so they can't really fly too far away. But
yeah, they're not like pigeons or something.
But because they're such a structured social order, they have to be able to communicate to stay together in the flock, and they do. That's exactly what they do. So They do. So when a rooster's out with his hens, and when they're out there, and what happens is he'll go find food, or he'll lead them out to the field.
Right.
They'll peck and eat, and he'll look at the skies, or he'll look at the horizon. His job is to protect them.
Right.
His job is to make babies and protect them. So he's out there protecting them, and if he makes a certain noise, if he sees a predator on the ground, he'll make a certain noise, and that hen will squat down and look forward. She'll know where to look. The whole group of hens will know where to look, and the dominant hen looks and leads. So the rest of them will follow that dominant hen's lead.
Yeah.
So also, to be the dominant hen, you got to be pretty good to get away from predators.
Yeah.
If you're in a predator, if you're in a natural environment. Now, the birds we have nowadays, the like my bantam cochins and the bigger, heavier breed birds, we bred them to be bigger.
Yeah.
Slower, not very good foragers. So that's why, and not very good against predators. So that's why you really can't free range them very well. There are free range breeds that do very well, but typically the better backyard birds, the better handleable birds, for us, don't do well with predators.
Right.
So that's why you've got to keep them cooped up.
Right.
And when you're there, you let them out with you. Absolutely, that's interaction. But the rest of the time, they need to be protected. We don't build coops to keep them in. We build coops to keep everything else out.
Yes, keep them safe.
And that's why we do. That's why we want to build our coops and make a good, solid structure.
Right. We've had chickens actually for about 10,000 years, maybe probably 12,000, a little bit more depending on who you ask. And we've bred them specifically for different things, like we keep alluding back to, be it meat or eggs or maybe just to look weird. And
just for feather structures and
But going back to the vocalization, it's not just for defense anymore. Like, they are a social creature. They know different. I guess they have their own language. They know different words. I know some chickens can actually make different noises for different foods too. Mm-hmm. So if you're just throwing food out there, they'll make like a happy noise, like, oh, getting some food or a chicken feed. But if a rooster's out there and he finds maybe a few grub worms, he might make a different noise to say, hey, come over here, guys, come over here, check what I found out. And of course, the pecking order, I guess, goes into play.
It's tuk-tuk, and he'll do a tuk-tuk. Do a tuk-tuk in a dance, and actually, they do it for my wife. He'll do it the same way. He'll bring her food, too.
Oh, yeah?
He imprinted on us, he imprinted on her, so she's part of his structure.
Nice.
They don't think they're human beings. They think we're part of their unit.
Yeah.
They don't see us as predators. They see us as just part of the social structures, because we do provide them food. We do provide them, and they do really like to sit on your lap, and he loves to be petted. He loves to have attention, and he'll do it every night, and he'll do it for a little bit, then he'll go on his way. He just wants a little attention.
Yeah.
A lot of mine do. They want attention. They want to sit, or they want to come see you, or they want to do it. And the food is right. If they like something like mealworms, they love freeze-dried mealworms. A lot of protein, good supplement. And they'll go crazy over it, and they'll make a different sound than if I just put lettuce or spinach out there. I do a lot of spinach and greens for them, and not as excited over that as they are over mealworms. So they do absolutely make different sounds. They do. If I don't pay attention to one of my little Duclay hens, Chelsea, she'll peck me on the foot. Yeah. If I'm not paying attention, she'll be clucking at me and clucking at me. And if I don't pay attention, she'll just peck my foot until I pay attention to her.
Yeah, I feel like.
And they do. They know that, though. I mean, we know through study that they can do. They've taken birds and they've run them through 5 different obstacles to get seed. They had to open a door, they had to push a lever, they had to jump on a swing to get seed. They've taken the bird away, the birds away in the study, put them back a month later, and they did the exact same thing. Yep. They remembered. They're cognitive. So they're cognitive in reaction, they're cognitive in seeing, they have a sense of themselves as being a part of a structure, and they're cognitive in remembering. They remember. I can recognize this function will get me food. And they went right back to it without any hesitation, so they can remember. So
chickens have the ability to, I guess, remember certain things. They have a certain intelligence about themselves that's different than what we might think of as intelligent. I know that if you ask somebody what the smartest animal is, they might say a dolphin, or they might say a parrot, because a parrot can talk, but a dolphin can't. But a dolphin can do apparently good math, and parrots can't. Chickens have really good social intelligence, and that's something that people often overlook whenever they think about chickens. It's because they've been bred for thousands and thousands of years, specifically to be a societal bird, to be a domesticated animal. And I can definitely guarantee, I can admit that whenever I had a chicken, he would come up to me. He knew that he could get my attention just instinctually, and I would, reward him somehow, pick him up, pet him, or I'd give him whatever.
Give him a treat, sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. They know exactly. And they also do come up with no treats involved. Yeah. They'll come sit on our lap with no treats involved, just to have attention, just to the social contact.
Yeah. Roosters will have a favorite hen. They'll have. I mean, there's throughout the entire animal kingdom, there's certain species of animals that have, I guess you can call them friends. I know elephants are one to, that you can talk about when you say that. They mourn for the death of other other elephants. I think that chickens actually are a little bit the same way. Would you agree?
Well, they do. They absolutely do have. They absolutely do have a favorite hen, usually a dominant hen, because of the strength. Just like plants and animals, the two functions we need to do are eat and make babies.
Yeah.
So the drives are eat and make babies. So the drive to make babies are strong. So the dominant hen gets everything, and she should, because she has the best chance to live. Just like the dominant rooster. We talked about earlier about the dominant rooster. If you got multiple roosters in a flock, and that the dominant rooster gets to make all the babies. If that rogue rooster, that second rooster, actually got a hold of one of the hens and bred her, she rejects his sperm, so she doesn't have those babies. She has only the babies of the strongest rooster.
That's incredibly interesting.
And so she won't have the babies. Yeah. She stores a dominant sperm. She'll only have his babies because he deserved the spot. He's the one that got her the most food. He's the most aggressive. He keeps predators away. So it's fascinating when you look into it. It's really fascinating, much more than what we thought. And you knew it. We knew by study for a long time, but people just assume. And usually the people that really don't like the chickens are the kids that grew up on farms.
Yeah,
the generation that grew up on farms had to feed them, had to clean them when they were really nasty cages and coops that they didn't really take care of. Yeah. They were pecked when they got the eggs, and they absolutely hate them. They're nasty, nasty little animals. But the people that get them and bring them to their homes and get the right ones and right breed, bring them home, they absolutely love them.
Yeah,
Nobody's ever told me they don't like them. They said, I absolutely love them. I wish I'd have got them earlier is the biggest comment. Yeah. I wish I'd have got them a long time ago.
Yeah, I definitely wish I would have been a little bit younger whenever I got my chickens. But actually, it is actually the 30-minute mark, so we're going to go ahead and read the station ID. I like what we've been talking about so far. I know the second half of the show, I kind of want to buckle down into, we were talking about generally what chickens are to people, but let's talk about what people are. Let's talk about what society is. Let's talk about why chickens and what chickens say about our society as a whole. You're listening to Radio UTD right now. The student-run radio station for University of Texas at Dallas, streaming live from the Student Union located in Richardson, Texas. Okay, now that that's all of the way, let's talk a little bit about what they reveal about us. I know that, like I said earlier, there's a resurgence of people owning chickens nowadays. They want to get a little bit healthier. I know that there's like a whole movement to eat more organic food, stay away from preservatives. Do you feel the same way? Is there like a
there absolutely is. There absolutely. People are I think part of the reason to start looking into this is they're the people especially that want to grow a little garden in the back, want to start getting some local food or growing a little bit on their own, being a little more self-sufficient. Yeah. It's absolutely a food movement that's the base of it, the total base of it. Now, it spreads by word of mouth. The people that do it love them, and that's why the neighbors get them, or that's why the friends get them, and it spreads it. But I think the first building, the first brick of this is all this study and obesity and all the inflammations, the diabetes, the heart diseases and everything. People are starting to look at their food sources. Yeah. Where's food coming from, and what are they doing to food? Yeah. That's the big thing. It's coming from China. It's coming from Mexico. It's coming from different places.
Yeah, it's coming from you don't even know where.
Well, exactly. You don't know where it is. You don't know what they're doing to it. It's coming from unregulated countries when they ship it in, and you don't know what's on it, what's been put into it, what's been done, and you'll see commercials or you'll see advertisements where the meat or the chicken is hormone free. We don't shoot hormones into our chickens. Yeah. I'm not worried about the hormones in the chickens. You don't need to.
Yeah,
they've been selectively bred. A Cornish rock is selectively bred to be ready to market in 6 weeks. Yeah. That's its breeding. It'll go from birth. It will go from hatching to 6 pounds in about 6 weeks. That's its genetics. That's what at 10 weeks old, it can't walk. It's so fat it can't move. That's its genetics. Yeah. They do not have a trigger to turn off the feeding, so they'll constantly feed. They don't move much. Their body's big-breasted, big legs. The broilers we get in the store, that's a broiler.
Yeah,
that's a broiler. We talked about the meat bird. Yeah. That's the broiler birds. They've been genetically, not genetically, but they've been selected where that's what we've got there. Yeah, it's not that, but it's also coming into the foods they're getting. It's the GMOs in the food. It's the manipulations of the splicing of the genes in foods to make. And you think about this. They're fed foods to make them grow big and fat. Okay.
Of course.
And we eat that food. So what's that going to do to us? It passes right to us. It's going to make us grow. It's going to make our people. I personally, eat mainly whole foods, and I'm getting rid of the poisons. And if it's not a natural food, a whole food, it's a poison. Your body has to act differently. It inflames. That's That's inflammation. That's diabetes, and that diabetes is a blood inflammation. But it's heart disease. It's arthritis. It's inflammation in the body because your body doesn't know what to do with it. It was never meant to eat this stuff in the first place.
Exactly. I gave up soda actually about 2 years ago, almost from today, and it's completely changed how I feel about my body. Like I didn't think it would make that kind of difference, and I haven't had a single sip of it since then.
Good for you. And it's just a lot of small changes make a huge difference. That's what I teach kids when I talk about obesity and nutrition. It's just a lot of small changes make a huge difference.
Exactly.
It's just do one at a time. Get rid of this. Soda's a big one. Get rid of soda. Get rid of sugary drinks. That's a huge start. And once you start getting results, and it's easier to make that next step and go forward with it. So
right. So would you say that people are getting chickens nowadays? I know that for me, I had a chicken, and then it spread to getting more chickens, and before I knew it, I had 5. They're kind of addictive.
That kind of happens if you can legally do it. The cities are restricting what they can do, and the city restrictions. If you can have 6, I usually tell people that get 3 this year. Start with 3, and then 2 years later get 3 more, and then you'll have eggs. Because one thing about chickens, and I want people to know this, getting them. You can get a chicken that lays 250 eggs a year, but that's only for a couple of years. They're not egg-laying machines forever. They cycle like mammals do, like female humans do. They're going to cycle down pretty quickly. Chickens will. The baby hen is born with all the eggs she'll ever pass. She's already got the ova she'll ever pass, and she can productively lay eggs into 9 or 10 years old, but not productively, but could lay eggs. She'll be very productive the first 3, and then she'll start tailing down. So you got if your sole intent is to have eggs forever, it's going to be extremely hard unless you're going to process the 3.
You have to have chickens forever.
Yeah, you do, and you've got to have new ones forever. You got to have a new flock over and over again to make it work. And you're not going to make money off of it. I guarantee you, it's not making money. It's not for that, because you're not going to sell your eggs and make money. You're not going to have enough chickens because it costs too much. There was a study done about 5 years ago. A farmer up north had 100 chickens. Did a 5-year study on his flock. How much it cost him to actually produce the eggs? Cost him $12.99 a dozen. Okay. In 5 years of production. So you can go to the store and buy them for what, $1?
Yeah, $2, $3 sometimes. Depending on
so it doesn't. It's not. The big factories make money.
Yeah, you know what? I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
One of my next questions actually was, does it turn a profit? Is there money motive in this? Is there anything like that?
It could. They might start out with money motive, but if you've ever been a gardener and thought you're going to sell produce and make money, you don't do it either. No. And chickens, you certainly don't. You're going to put out. You should build a good, strong coop. You put money into it. Yeah. Food bill is not. Chicken feed is not horribly expensive, but it's not going to. It's not going to be. Yeah. And if you want organic, it's even. It's pretty expensive. It's a better way to go. Yeah. But if you want it, it's more expensive. You don't make money off of it. Yeah, it's not the point. It's not going to be the point. And I tell people flat out, if this is what your motive is, and you think you're going to make money off of 3 hens, it's just not going to ever happen. So.
Right. Okay. Perfect. Yeah. Chickens aren't, like you said, aren't for making money off of. People aren't doing it because it is. Saves them money, or they can sell their eggs or something. They're doing it for the health benefits.
Sure, absolutely, right? Absolutely, yeah, exactly. Because if I feed my chicken good organic food, and I supplement it with spinach, and I supplement it with the good high vitamin, high calciums, I'm going to get it back. Exactly. If I supplement it with omega-3, I'm going to get the omega-3s back.
They're going to process it
and
for you.
And you're going to get back in the egg. And eggs are perfect food anyway. Eggs are great food anyway. But fresh eggs are so much different than the factory eggs you get. There's no different, and there's no comparison to them. They're thick, they're dark yolked, they're natural. And what you do is you feed them the ration, the actual chicken food that they're made for chickens. Different times of their life, they're going to need a different food. But feed them the ration, and then supplement them lightly, and let them graze out there. Let them get what they need, and they'll go out and they'll graze in your yard. They'll get insects and everything else. The more goodies they get on the side, the better the eggs are going to be.
Perfect,
and they're going to get great eggs out of it. So it is a nutrition. It's absolutely a nutrition thing. And know where your food's coming from, just like the little gardens, and just like people just trying to feed the kids a little bit better.
Yeah, I know that I've read a lot of news stories actually about cities cracking down on people who have gardens in their yard and stuff, and that just means that if more people are getting cracked down on, that means more people are having their own gardens. I see that there's a big self-sufficiency movement. People are starting to collect rainwater. People are starting to get the solar panels on their houses. They want to actually kind of become self-sufficient to not only distance themselves away from paying money to companies or corporations, but also kind of the government, just in case anything happens. And I feel like the self-sufficiency movement is for a few reasons, as stated earlier, but some of the other reasons I can think of are, I know after 9/11, it really changed a lot of people's views. Have a backup plan just in case food prices ever, increase, because they did increase after 9/11. If it increases out of control, or if there's some kind of food deficiency or something like that, they want to have a backup plan. I mean, if things go bad, you can't eat a chicken. So.
Well, sure you can, and it's one of the things that is part. You look at preppers. You look at the preppers that have all these. They all have chickens, and that's part of their gardens, and that's just a big part of it too. You absolutely can. They're the easiest farm animal to control and have. They're easier because you can move them all over the world. That's why they migrate. They were on every continent in the world at one time. So that's why they were moved. They're easy to move, easy to take care of. So the one thing you can take that they will feed you without you killing it.
Yeah.
They will feed you eggs and eggs and eggs. You don't have to kill it. The cows you can't do. Cows you get milk. I mean, milk cows,
you drink it,
but a milk cow though takes a bathtub full of water every day. Yeah. So it's not really practical to move across the world with something that takes that much water.
Yeah.
So they could move the chickens, and they did. They migrate all over the world with people because they were handleable. They produced, and at the end, you do eat them. I mean, that's what they did. They ate them when they were finished laying eggs.
All right. People realize right now that chickens are easy to own. Like I said, I had chickens. I got about 5 of them because I liked them, and they were easy to own, easy to take care of, and there's a lot of payoff. They're like pretty friendly. But then not only did they spread within my own yard, I realized that within the next few weeks that few years, that my neighbors got them, and then another neighbor down the street got them, and then my other neighbor got them. So, there was 4 people that I knew of, just like within a few, at least a block from me, that had chickens because I got them, and they realized, how easy they are to take care of. And maybe, my neighbors said to me that they got chickens because they had some when they were little, and then it reminded them, and they liked that reminiscence, I guess. So they got chickens because of that reason.
Yeah, and they got back to them. And the thing about that is, if we can spread it, one of our kind of a utopian dream of this whole movement, the permaculture and the green movement, is the fact that when you get chickens in your backyard, you can't spray anymore. You can't poison the environment anymore.
Yeah.
You got to lay back on no fertilizers, nothing out there. You need to clean up your environment. So if this environment in this house gets them and they clean up, and what if the next door neighbor gets them and the next door neighbor gets them? We can start cleaning up communities slowly, one house at a time, because everything you put out is going to come to your egg.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
You cannot.
If you give your chicken good food, you're going to get something good in return.
And you don't have to. You can take your compost and compost. You don't need fertilizers. You don't need anything anymore if you've got the cycle working. Let the natural cycle work.
Yeah.
So it helps clean up the environment, right? It could. This is what we dream, that maybe people will get this and quit using the fertilizers, quit wasting all the water, quit putting all the herbicides and all the things out, and just let the birds take care of it. Because they'll eat insects, they'll eat weeds, they'll eat a lot of things, and they'll help clean up your yard. Yes, they'll also eat your garden. So they're going to help you harvest everything that's in your garden too. So
they're going to recycle your garden.
Yeah, they love your strawberries, and they'll help you pick strawberries and help you eat they'll eat all your leafy vegetables down. But that's just part of the thing, and you understand that. But there's so many benefits to having them as part of our environment, as part of our family.
Yeah, actually, being a family member, like having my chicken be my family member, I loved that idea when I was little. Like I love my chicken so much. He was my best friend at the time. Actually, I moved a lot whenever I was a kid. I never went to the same school twice until middle school, so I don't have like a childhood friend, and I didn't really hang out with people outside of high school. During those high school years. But I did have my chicken, and he was my best friend. I played with him every day, and I had a dog too, so it's not like I was like some weird kid with a chicken or something, but I was the weird kid with the chicken.
You were the weird kid with the chicken. I hope you got help for all this. So, hope you're okay now.
Yeah, he helped me out a little bit.
He got you through it, didn't he?
Yeah. But I had some more chickens after that. Right now I have a rooster, and he's a new rooster. Like I said, my first one passed away. Unfortunately, there was a storm. It was like really raining really bad outside, and my rooster was scared, and he actually hopped the fence. He had never hopped the fence before. I didn't know he could.
Yeah, Leghorn can. They're pretty good flyers. Yeah, they can hop and get pretty good height, and that's the Mediterranean birds. That's why you need to cage them a little differently, because they do have more range.
Yeah, I like to think that he got swept up by the wind, because it was really windy outside, but long story short, the neighbor's dog got to him and took him out. That was really a sad day for me, but I got a new chicken eventually after that, a new rooster, to kind of replace because I was sad and stuff. And The new rooster, I don't think I raised him right. I don't think that I kept him around me as much as I did with my first rooster. So while he still respects me and I still think he loves me and I can still hold him and stuff, he doesn't have that connection, that imprint that I have.
You have the deeper imprint. You have a it's a social bond, but it's not an imprint.
Yeah,
there's a difference between imprinting and just a bonding, where the animal can bring it in the yard and you can actually get them to where you can hold them and fairly instead of
where they come up to you.
Exactly, it doesn't recognize you as a complete member of the flock, as a complete member of them. One thing about the dog I always want to bring up with when I'm talking about that, I have 2 big dogs and my chickens walk all over the dogs and the dogs don't bother them. You had a dog and a chicken, but what you got to remember now is the fact that what you've done by introducing a dog into this environment is you've taken away his flight response to animal.
Yeah.
So he's not scared of any dog. And they're not particularly scared of dogs. They don't realize it fast enough to where the number one killer on the ground of chickens in the cities are dogs.
Yeah.
Because chickens go up to the dog and don't recognize. They recognize dogs, but they don't recognize the body as being something that's a predator anymore. And cats and coyotes and everything else. So when you've done that, you remember you've taken away some of its flight response. Right. So you got to be really careful not letting them get in other yards. Don't introduce other dogs into the yard with them because they're not going to necessarily flight from them right away. Yeah. It's going to take a while before they'll fly away from them. So you got to really be careful when you do it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Cats the same way. You're changing their innate behavior of flight. So you got to protect them. Yeah. Knowing that, you can protect them and understand that.
Yeah. I think. Actually, I was going to mention that I think that I'm a little bit I guess kind of a weird scenario that I had. I had a small dog. And he was actually smaller than my rooster, so I don't think my rooster is going to be afraid of him at all.
No, the new roosters generally, the big ones aren't afraid of cats. Usually cats aren't big enough to do much damage to them.
Yeah. So the last thing that I wanted to talk about actually was chickens inside. I actually had to get a new chicken coop, and we were looking for material and stuff online, and we actually found somebody who was selling an intact chicken coop that they made. It was awesome. He was a carpenter. He made it just kind of for fun. He was selling it because he didn't want it anymore. And he had chickens, and they were inside chickens, like indoor pets. And he kept the chickens inside. And he had this giant dog. And I remember the chicken was trying to come outside at the same time the dog was, because he opened the door and called for them. The chicken was named Big Bird, and it would come to its name. It would be called, and it would just come running. And he jumped on top of the dog and kind of rode it for a second, then jumped off, and it kind of showed me that they can have this bond. If you have a bond with your dog, you can have that same bond with the chicken, and that chicken can have that same bond with a dog. They can be friends, and everything can work out. But indoor chickens, I feel what? Actually, let me ask your opinion on that first. What do you think about indoor chickens?
They're going to be a sad bird. They need to be outside. I mean, they need to scratch in the soil. They need to touch the soil. They need to touch the sunshine. And the thing about the dog and the bonding of the animal, they're social. So you never just get one chicken.
Of course.
It's got to have some other animal. And he had 2. But I also say never get 2, get 3, especially since if it's 3 hens, because you're going to have a dominant. And you don't want a dominant just chasing one around the yard all the time. You want to spread the aggression out. So get 3, and most cities do 3 or 6, or they understand that and if you explain why, that's the way to do it. But the chicken, there's the Sarama. I've got a little pair of Saramas. They were initially bred to be inside. They're a Malaysian bird, the smallest chicken, very small, 9 ounces. 7 inches tall. I've got a little bitty pair, and they were bred to be inside like a parrot. Like a parrot in there. But typically the birds we're talking about, they need to be outside.
Yeah, they need to be.
You'll see that when you build a coop which is a house that they're going to sleep and lay eggs in. That's all they're going to do in it. And then you need a closed run or a big run where they can come out and scratch in the dirt and the soil and be outside all the time, because they're going to spend all the time outside. The only reason they're going to go back in there during the day is to lay eggs. They're not going to stay in the house. They're going to be outside.
Yeah, of course.
They're a forest animal. They're innately, and they still have a lot of that, all that behavior, all that forest behavior is still there.
Yeah, they actually originated from north of India, actually, in the forest and woods that they had up there, in the mountainous area, and they are ground birds.
So. And they're still there. They're still the red jungle fowl, which is still wild bird there, and there's been a lot of studies looking at the wild birds and relating them back to what the chickens do. They're not that far removed from their ancestors. Yeah, so they're really not. So,
they have that need for being outside.
Yes, they do, and they absolutely need to be outside. And people to bring them in. And the thing about them bringing them inside, you're taking a risk of inside. If they're pooping inside the house, that's ridiculous.
Right.
Because that's not because they're carrying.
Yeah.
They're not disease ridden. They're not disease carrying, but it's not their natural environment. They're under stress.
Yeah.
And being under stress, salmonella and different pathogens can take hold. I mean, that's what you need. You need a host that's in stress. So they're going to be in stress inside, no matter what people think. And I saw a TV show once where a lady carried around with a diaper on it.
Yeah,
and had a diaper on, chicken diaper.
Actually, if you want to buy one, chickendiapers.com. That is a real.
You can buy them. You can buy them, and generally that chicken diaper is to keep the rooster from breeding the hen or tearing her up.
Yeah.
But she was using it for pooping.
Yeah.
Like a baby diaper.
Yeah.
And she carried around and said, "My chicken loves me." And you looked at that poor chicken's eyes, and he looked very, very stressed out. Big old eyes, and he looked very sad.
Was it a silky? Yes.
Yeah, it was a silky. Yes.
I saw that same one.
And it looked terrified.
I saw that same.
It looked terrified.
Video.
You know, she carried around. Oh, it loves me, and it was looking off and trying to.
She was feeding it McDonald's, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, and just exactly what you do, and it's just like and chickens are like kids; they're gonna eat the candy first.
Yeah,
that's why you do very little supplement, very little extra stuff besides the ration of food, the chicken feed that they need for their nutritional, and we can look and see nutritional issues, but you give them a little bit of goodies, but not McDonald's, not crap, not pizza, not spaghetti, not junk chocolate, like that, no chocolate, nothing like that. Give them what you would give yourself if you want to be healthy. Mm-hmm. Spinach. Berries in the summertime, melons are good. I really limit it to just a few things. I don't have a whole lot of supplements they get. They don't get candies and stuff like that. So,
yeah, okay. Well, actually, you know what, Jeff? We're actually got about 6 minutes left. Do you have any final thoughts? Any last words you want to say to our listeners?
Yeah, I want to thank you for letting me come on.
Oh, of course.
And it's been a lot of fun talking with you, and I always love talking chicken, obviously.
Yeah, me too.
But anybody that's thinking about getting them, just please research. Go to lectures, go read books, get on the internet, Google it. Really get yourself informed about what it's going to take to do it. It's a very, very wonderful experience if you know what you're going to get into. It's like everything else. If you know what you're getting into, and it's not painted with a fancy paintbrush, or it's not painted, not candy coated, and you're going from facts, then you know what you're getting into. And come out to one of the lectures, come out to semi-talk, come out to one, just read books. Yes. Read books and do like I do. I research all the time.
I have like 20 or 25 chicken books. I'm not kidding.
And I research all the time. I'm always looking for new research, and I get papers, so I'm always researching for something new.
Speaking of those meetings, can you actually plug real quick when your next meeting is? If anybody
I'm going to be lecturing this week. I have a Saturday and Sunday lecture at the Home and Garden Show and Market Hall. I'll be out there at 11 o'clock both days, and I'm giving a presentation both days.
11 o'clock in the morning, right?
11 o'clock in the morning, 11 to 12.
Do you have like a website or something that has that information on it?
Not on this information. I'm just on the Aggie website, but I've got I want an email out, so people can email me, and my email is jwraska@ag.tamu.edu. That's jwraska@ag.tamu, Texas A&M University.education.edu.
Yep. Guys,
please email me, and I will be happy to. I will answer your emails.
Guys, Jeff Raska, my bad, is actually like a chicken expert. He's like a chicken genius. Send him any question that you have. He'll give you an honest response. He'll tell you the facts like you need to know. He'll let you know if you're ready or not for a chicken too, right?
I will, absolutely. I'll certainly give you. You'll certainly get my thought on that if I think you're if you're ready.
If you're feeding a McDonald's, he'll let you know not to do that anymore.
I'll definitely let you know.
Okay, guys. Up next we have Angel, right? Angel, yes. Her show is actually called Thursday Night Cram Session, and I think that's going to do it for us tonight, Jeff.
Well, thank you, Jonathan. Thank you for having me on.
Yep. Hey, catch us next week on September 11th. We're going to have another episode all about conspiracy theories. We're going to talk about 9/11, of course, because it's an anniversary. We're going to talk about JFK a little bit. I don't know too much about that one, but I like other conspiracy theories. We're going to talk about the hollow earth and how that conspiracy ties in dinosaurs in the middle of the earth with Nazis that fly in UFOs. I'm not kidding you. I can't make this up, guys. All right. See ya.